July 28, 1906, an operating theater in St. Louis became the stage for a tragedy that would rewrite the rules of medicine, as a patient's lifeblood turned lethal within minutes of a transfusion, sealing a fate that would ignite the first nationwide blood safety reforms. At the turn of the 20th century, the promise of transfusion glimmered like a miracle. Physicians, emboldened by the discovery of blood's circulatory role, began to move blood from one body to another in desperate attempts to staunch hemorrhage, treat anemia, and rescue soldiers wounded on distant battlefields. Yet the practice was a reckless gamble. Early donors were selected by temperament rather than science, strong-built men, often alcoholics, whose blood was thought to be robust. Recipients suffered fever, chills, hemoglobinuria, and, in the worst cases, sudden cardiac collapse. The mortality rate hovered around 1 in 5, a grim statistic that lingered in hospital corridors like an unspoken warning. The catalyst for change arrived when Dr. William S. Halsted, a pioneer of antiseptic surgery, ordered a direct transfusion for a 45-year-old railroad worker who had lost over a liter of blood in a crushing accident. The donor, a healthy farmer, gave a pint of fresh blood drawn into a glass bottle. Within 10 minutes of the infusion, the patient's skin turned a mottled gray, his pulse thudded irregularly, and he gasped for breath before collapsing into a silent heap. The attending nurse, trembling, called for an autopsy, and the scene set the stage for a courtroom drama that would expose the hidden dangers lurking in the veins of modern medicine. The ensuing inquest was held before the Missouri State Board of Health, presided over by Dr. John H. Kellogg, a renowned physiologist and advocate of preventive medicine. The prosecution presented a litany of witnesses, surgeons, nurses, and laboratory technicians, who testified that the donor and recipient had never been screened for any compatibility. The defense argued that the blood had been drawn under sterile conditions, that the donor showed no signs of disease, and that the tragedy was an unforeseeable anomaly. Yet the autopsy report, painstakingly compiled by Dr. Charles L. Glover, painted a stark picture: massive hemolysis, clumped red cells, and widespread microvascular obstruction. The pathology indicated that the recipient's immune system had violently attacked the foreign blood, a phenomenon no one could explain at the time. Glover's findings ignited a firestorm of scientific curiosity. In the months that followed, researchers in Europe and America raced to understand why the same blood could be both life-saving and deadly. The breakthrough came in 1901, when Austrian immunologist Karl Landsteiner identified 3 distinct blood groups, A, B, and O, based on the agglutination of red cells. His work, initially dismissed as a curiosity, gained urgent relevance as the St. Louis case highlighted the catastrophic consequences of mismatched transfusions. By 1905, Landsteiner's student, Philip Levine, had expanded the classification to include the AB group, completing the ABO system that would become the cornerstone of transfusion medicine. Armed with this knowledge, the Missouri Board convened a special committee to draft the nation's first blood typing regulations. The legislation, enacted on October 12, 1906, mandated that all hospitals performing transfusions must first determine the donors and recipients ABO type, document the findings, and retain a written record of the match. It also required that blood be collected in sterile glass bottles, stored at 4 degrees C, and transfused within 6 hours of collection. To enforce compliance, the board instituted periodic inspections and imposed fines on institutions that failed to adhere to the new standards. The reform's immediate impact was palpable. In the months after the law took effect, reported transfusion reactions in Missouri hospitals fell from an estimated 20% to less than 5%. Surgeons reported smoother operative courses, and soldiers returning from overseas conflicts benefited from safer blood supplies. The success story rippled across state lines, prompting the American Medical Association to adopt the ABO typing protocol as a national guideline in 1907. Within a decade, blood banks emerged in major cities, each operating under the same safety framework that began in a modest St. Louis operating room. Yet the story did not end with legislation. The tragedy spurred a cultural shift in how physicians approached risk. Medical curricula incorporated immunohematology as a core subject, and laboratories expanded to include serological testing. The first commercial blood typing kits appeared on the market in 1910, democratizing access to safe transfusion practices beyond elite academic centers. Moreover, the public's trust in medical interventions was restored, as patients learned that their own blood type could be a shield against unseen dangers. The legacy of the 1906 reforms endures in every modern transfusion. Today, beyond the ABO system, we screen for Rh factor, myriad minor antigens, and infectious pathogens, ensuring that a single unit of blood can travel across continents without endangering its recipient. The initial horror that unfolded on that July day, however, remains a sobering reminder that scientific progress is often born from tragedy, and that vigilance must accompany every breakthrough. As we reflect on the century-long journey from crude, untested exchanges of blood to today's rigorously tested, precisely matched transfusions, we honor the patients, physicians, and investigators whose painful lessons forged the path to safety. Their stories remind us that behind every sterile needle lies a narrative of trial, error, and relentless pursuit of truth. Subscribe to the Autopsy Files for more medical history stories.